We look down at running back, Denny. We're looking at the top of the boards, and we're looking at now Justin Jefferson is the 101. We have Cooper Kupp as the 102. We're still waiting to see what happens then with CMC and Jonathan Taylor and so on. But what are you looking at with these running backs? The likes of Jonathan Taylor, Najee Harris, Javonte Williams is the one who's probably moved the most in terms of rounds over the last 12 months. And then, of course, we have Christian McCaffrey. How are you playing that? And then, as we mentioned earlier, are you factoring in that we should be going wide receiver over these guys, or are you still taking some of these running backs early?
Yeah, man, it's tough. I will say it's tough to answer in March. I'll say that Najee Harris, I guess, is by default in that group because of just the massive, ungodly volume that he'll get in the Pittsburgh offense. I mean, Najee Harris led the league in expected fantasy receiving points last season over Austin Eckler just because he was out there all the time and he ran all the routes and he got a ton of targets in a Pittsburgh offense that really couldn't do much with Roethlisberger under center. I think it could be kind of bad news for him if Trubisky or whoever starts for the Steelers in week one brings some more options to the way that they conduct the offense, and it's not just a bunch of dump offs to Harris. But I would not put Harris in there. I think Taylor is the clear number one. I don't know. I'd be fine not going with Derrick Henry as the second running back off the board, which is where his ADP is at the moment. I would feel way better about taking, say, Javonte Williams. Right now he's going at the turn. I feel way better about taking him there than taking Derrick Henry 4 or 5 picks earlier.
Denny, we just saw Taylor go for the 101, the 111, and Amon-Ra in a RotoViz Triflex Dynasty League. We've got our new Dynasty rankings with tiers, and the tiers represent future trade value. And obviously these top guys in terms of Jonathan Taylor, 3 first-round picks, probably right. Then you move to Christian McCaffrey and Javonte Williams. You mentioned liking Williams. Blair and I are trying to move Williams just to sort of basically keep trading for fun and kind of have him as 2 firsts and a second, maybe a first in 2022, a first in 2023, some second round pick thrown in there. Is that kind of what you would be looking at in terms of these guys? And Williams seems like the number 3 back in Dynasty for sure. Is that the way that you see it, or are there some other people also involved here?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds right to me. You look at some of his peripheral numbers, Javonte Williams numbers from last year. He was 5th in Pro Football Focus's elusive rating. He was tied for 10th in runs of more than 15 yards. By the way, Melvin Gordon was 29th in that category. And in the one game that we saw with Javonte Williams getting the full workload with Melvin Gordon out, he exploded. He went from averaging, he averaged 11.3 rushing attempts per game with Gordon in the lineup. He had 29 in Gordon's lone missed game, and he went berserk and he got all the targets. I think Russell Wilson, obviously being under center, is a monster factor for Javonte. He strikes me as he definitely has the RB1 in his range of outcomes this year.
That's what we like to hear on Williams. But then let's go a little bit rapid fire. I mean, how rapid fire, it doesn't matter too much, but I've got 3 questions for you where we want to, you mentioned making online enemies of Cooper Kupp fans. Let's create a whole group of people who are after you here. So we'll start with the favorite pick to crush ADP in rounds 3 through 6.
Yes. That was hard choosing because there are so many players who strike me as guys who could really outperform, where they're being drafted. I'll start in the 4th round. And, I don't love doing this, but I'll say Saquon Barkley. He's going in the middle of the 4th round. What? I mean, it's like, he was the victim of some pretty poor luck last year. He came back from his injury, playing the Cowboys around midseason. He steps on a teammate's ankle and he's never the same, and then Daniel Jones goes down and their offensive linemen go down, and it just collapsed on itself in New York. And I don't really blame that on Saquon Barkley. So if Barkley is gets the every down role in New York in a probably much improved Dable led offense. I see him just destroying that fourth round ADP. How about you guys?
So you see Barkley in the Singletary final month role as opposed to Barkley in the last year and a half before that role.
I guess that's the hope. I guess that would be the hope if you think that he's going to outperform that fourth round ADP. Yeah.
It feels like he's either in the ready to bounce back category, but it also feels like he could be in the final year of a running back's fantasy value category where, like, the dead zone, he could truly be a dead zone running back, but he could also have that league winning upside. So I feel like he's right in there. And I think what Shawn was alluding to is we kind of have 18 months where there's been, 2 injuries in there and he has had a bad offense and a lot of bad luck, like you mentioned. Is that something that he's going to overcome with New York this year? But he does feel like in that fourth round range, a very tempting running back to pick up. So I guess I'll throw this back to Shawn. Shawn, do you feel like is he a true dead zone running back, or is he somebody with massive upside in the fourth round?
Well, if you're going to draft a running back in the first 8 rounds, he needs to be somebody who could put up 22 points a game. And there are only a handful of guys. And that's one of the reasons why I took David Johnson a little bit longer than it ended up working. I mean, you could say smart, not smart. It didn't work after he tried to come back from his very first season. But I am still very much on board with Barkley. So hopefully Denny's right, because if he's right, then we're going to be in very good shape in 2022.
And I will say that there's zero chance that we're going to be talking about Saquon Barkley going the fourth round when more well-adjusted people are drafting fantasy football teams. I mean, not us. We're not well-adjusted, but casual folks are going to come in and they're going to be like, yeah, Saquon Barkley, I took him in the first round last year. I can get him in the second round now. Okay, I'll do that. Now that, to me, that's too rich. But if it stays depressed, if the ADP stays depressed, I would be very hard pressed to skip over him.
Well, Denny, then who is going to be the double-digit round sleeper? And again, I mean, you have more choices now than you'll have several months from now as people realize who really is rising. But what's the big name out there right now that you're getting in every league?
Yeah, Robbie Gould. No, I'm kidding.
We used your kickers, and it was successful for us. So you don't have to joke. We like the kicker stuff.
Man, I'm so happy to hear that. Yeah. So I had to throw in it just contractually. I had to say Robbie Gould, who, by the way, people say, "Oh, Robbie Gould's so old. He's so old." Yeah, let's take it easy, okay? Robbie Gould's like 4 months older than me, so please pump the brakes on the Robbie Gould is old thing. Kadarius Toney going in the 11th round. I guess you know what? Here's the thing. I guess I'm all in on the Giants offense. I've been very excited about Toney since he came into that slot role. He seems to have a knack for commanding targets, which we like in fantasy. That stretches back to Florida when he was a very raw receiver, but he was one who borderline dominated targets for the Gators on a team that included Kyle Pitts, of course. So that stretched into the NFL, where he was just absolutely dominant with targets when the Giants receivers struggled with injuries. They could never really get him involved in the same way once everybody was back. That was a little frustrating, and I get that. And that's probably why he's going in the 11th round now instead of the 8th or 7th or something. But man, I would be extremely excited to take Toney in the 11th round.
I think that Colm and I took him 7th or 8th in our most recent draft. So we would definitely agree. Okay, here's the chance to make enemies. Who is the biggest avoid player in drafts, any ADP?
Yeah, probably CPAT. And I take that. I take no pleasure in saying that, honestly. I'm a longtime Cordarrelle Patterson truther, and I enjoy him. I enjoy watching him as a player. He seems like a really fun, real guy. So not saying anything about him personally, but he's going in the 8th round according to the ADP I'm looking at. Is that around where you guys are seeing him?
Yeah.
So two things jump out. One is Patterson at the end of 2021 or near the end of 2021, he told reporters straight up a couple times, this running back thing is different. Like I'm getting my butt kicked out there and it hurts and I'm not used to it. And then Arthur Smith came out shortly after and he said, yeah, I mean, we're going to have to manage Patterson's workload. He's not a running back. You know, we can't run him out there. We can't give him 16 carries a game. You know, like maybe we would want to, because he's not built like that. So I don't think that he's going to have all that rushing appeal that he had last year. Now, if the Falcons can figure out a way to creatively use a weapon like Patterson as a pass catcher, I will be wrong here. But I don't have much faith in this offense being all that successful this year with Marcus Mariota under center.
Yeah, I think the quarterback change is something that's going to affect that quite a bit. And, you know, last year, obviously, he was going undrafted pretty much up until the week or two before the season. So a massive value there. But I think we're going to end up having a lot of that baked in to drafts this year. He does feel like somebody, unfortunately, who's in the dead zone. And you mentioned saying that it's tough on him playing running back. Seems like he wants to play safety as well, or cornerback. So we'll see what happens there. Did you enjoy that clip? Make sure you hit that subscribe button to get more content from RotoViz. And of course, you can check out full-length podcasts at rotoviz.com/podcast. Available on all podcast platforms. Check out our wide range of content. Once again, rotoviz.com/podcast.